My guest today has over 15 years of experience helping top companies like Wayfair and Zalando completely transform their hiring process and grow their teams.
The reality is, unfortunately, in Germany, it is difficult right now because still Germany is very risk adverse.
She's the founder of Talent Crunch Berlin, the largest talent community in Germany, where hundreds of professionals connect and level up their careers. In this episode, we're going deep into how you can use the skills you already have to unlock new opportunities and make real progress in your career.
Your certification, wrap it, throw it out the window.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. I will get some hate for that.
And no, this isn't about waiting for the perfect job or hoping for a miracle. This is about using what you already know and turning it into something big.
If someone who's listening now knows they want to change but feels afraid to starting over, what would you tell to them?
I would urge individuals to...
Andreea, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Andreea, a lot of people feel sometimes stuck at their jobs and don't know how to figure out what you're good at. And we were just talking about this before for a while, and I would like you to unwrap it. Where do you even start when you're trying to understand what you're really capable of?
I always go both business and individual, and in my life, I try to strip everything down to a basic. So let's say do a personal audit. Everybody does stuff in their day-to-day job, stuff which is in your job description, stuff which is in your, maybe you have a career framework in your company. But then you do stuff which is nowhere written down. So my first place would be write every single thing down. And people think, oh, it's so trivial. I can't, it's so normal for me to do this. Yes, but this is what we talked about, right? What is trivial for you, for other people will be really complicated to do. And regardless, write everything down because that is the point number one. Literally everything. Meaning that you attend meetings, you lead meetings, you help stakeholders do X, Y, Z. Audit everything, and don't think anything is too small.
So you would say pick a piece of paper and start writing what you're good at.
Pick a piece of paper if you don't like trees. If you like trees, go and do it in a spreadsheet, in a Google Sheet, in a Google Doc, whatever it is. Yes, start writing it down.
You talked about something called career archetyping.
Mm-hmm.
I think here's where we get in what you were starting to tell. What does it mean in simple terms, and how can it help someone to figure out what you're good at and where do they stand right now?
Okay, in the career archetype, let's say we start with this audit that we just talked about. Literally every single action we take in relation to our role, job. And in this, if we imagine it as a huge document, it can be just as well a Google spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be anything. You can use Notion, you can use whatever works for you. You can even use paper. But if we imagine a big document and we split it into smaller pieces, we start with the actions that we take and we derive from the actions capabilities that are shown through those actions. And I will give some more relevant example or some more clear example. Then you have from capabilities, which are, let's say, an amalgamation of skills, you move into skills. These are maybe one or two words. That's how you kind of know the difference between a capability and a skill. And I will actually share some more tangible things. And these are things that are, I would say, rather practical. People would look at them primarily and say, these are hard skills. Let's call them hard skills. I'm not a fan of the terminology, but this is the first piece. In a career archetype, however, think of it as our entire, kind of like a plan, right? It's like, who am I from a career standpoint? People have heard of the word personas. In marketing, in sales, in talent acquisition, we have personas. Kind of like, who is my persona? Who am I from a career perspective? So we have this first piece. The second piece I encourage everyone to do, and we don't do it enough, is understand your own values. Ideally professional values, but what I find is that they interlock. with personal values. This is something we can dive deeper if you want to. But then the third piece, which is also very important, is your strengths. And here we have a few ways to find this out. One, you can ask for feedback from people who wouldn't just flatter you. You can ask your friends, your family. You can and should ask your business collaborators, stakeholders, leaders, colleagues, and even individuals that you don't necessarily have everyday dealings with. You can do free tests online. One of them is Red Bull Wing Finder. It's a very good test.
How's it called again?
Red Bull Wing Finder. So it's from Red Bull, and it's really, really fun. It's around 45 minutes, so it's properly done.
All right.
And this is for free, because there are others which are paid. But do some strengths tests and understand your strengths. Look at 5 of them. You don't need to know 25. It doesn't help much. And then put these all together. On the strengths part, I would advise them to look at something else, but maybe that's too detailed right now. But back to the basics. You have your activities, your actions, which you can use to understand your capabilities, and then your skills. Then you have your values, then you have your strengths. Understanding all of this will then help you understand what can be transferred either to a different position, to a different career, to just understand where you are solid or where you're wobbly.
Yeah.
And you need some help.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry to interrupt this amazing show, but I need a bit of help. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see the subscribe button. If you do, it would mean the world if you can subscribe. It's the best way to support the show. Because when you subscribe, I can show it to potential guests and brands and stuff like that. And it really helps to grow the podcast. Have cooler conversations, cooler guests, and it helps really a lot. So if you don't mind, thank you so much. Now let's get back to it.
You talked about the thing of feedback, and you can ask to your friends or family, but how do you avoid I think you're good. and to avoid, how do you actually get their honest opinion, or how can you find people who will give you an honest opinion and not just people that are afraid of hurting your feelings?
Oh, that's such a good one. You know what I would suggest is if we look within ourselves and when we are being asked by others to provide them with feedback, what holds us back? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. On a different level, though, it can just be that I don't know you that well. So first, I would look inside. I was like, okay, if somebody would ask me to give them feedback, what would make me be a bit reluctant? What would make me be a bit standoffish? Or what would make me just lie or fabricate stuff? And then if I look internally, I can already create something which is called the preempting objections, right? So let's imagine that I'm a person who I'm very empathetic. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So if I know if they would ask me, I would be very, very kind. So preempting objections would mean that, okay, I know that somebody else can do the same. So when I go and I ask them for feedback, I say, look, I understand how it is to be very empathetic and to be compassionate to other people. But it would really help me out if you would be extremely transparent with your feedback, very on point, not cruel, but without any shame. I will not take this personally at all, but it will help me tremendously rather than sugarcoating things. It's like kind of like when we ask ChatGPT, please don't sugarcoat things, So telling these people ahead of time that I know that you may want to do this because I'm the same. It's really called preempting objections, preempting their own objections of why they wouldn't do it in a way. That's one way of doing it, which is the human way. And this is for not in business. In business, I would hope that there are some frameworks in place where they can use.
In businesses comes more along in the 101s, the typical frameworks. And of course, there's like these frameworks also from the Radical Candor. I don't know if you read the book.
Yes.
For example, stuff like that. And also the sandwich or kind of way strategy. I tell you,
there is this SBIN framework as well. But there are frameworks, and you know what? I would say that even for folks which are maybe in your vicinity, family, friends, even you can teach them, right? Maybe they are not used to it, but you can even give them a framework or two. Situation, behavior, impact, and next steps. That's what it stands for. It's like, you can give me feedback following this. Maybe it's easier for you.
Yeah. Good point.
Do you live and work in Germany and you haven't done your tax declaration, the Steuererklärung? Well, stop being afraid because you might be missing a very good tax refund. Sometimes it's difficult to understand all of these laws and everything. You might be wondering, okay, this is too complicated. Well, it is only complicated if you're not using the right tools. And therefore, I want to thank our sponsor of this episode, WunderTax. WunderTax is an online platform where you can file your tax declaration. Very simple. You just need to follow the steps, upload your documents, and then it will calculate how much tax refund you might be granted. The average person in Germany gets around 1,095 euros back. That's a very good opportunity that you might be missing out. So if you want to see how much you might get on your tax refund, go to gutentag.wundertax.de. You can just run a simulation if you want to test it. And also that's the best way to support this podcast. So give it a try, wundertax.de. They have the website in plain English, so you will understand all the tax terminology without any trouble. So now let's continue with the conversation.
You talk about transferable skills. And these are skills, as far as I understood in your article, skills that you have that can, or you have, from the skills that you have to identify which of those are transferables in different industries or different careers or roles. Mm-hmm. For example, if we talk about communication, having a good communication skills is a transferable skill that you can focus on because it can help you if you move to another industry or if you want to grow to a leadership path and so on. How do we identify them? Because, of course, there's some of them that can be, okay, leadership skills or communication skills. How do we identify which one of the skills that we might have, either hard skills or soft skills, which one of those are transferable?
Before I answer that, I think we need to understand for ourselves, where do we want to go? So it's just like planning any journey in your life. I want to go from the ground floor to the 5th floor. I have a few options. I can take the stairs. I can have someone carry me. I can take the elevator, and that will inform what am I looking at. I need to use my legs. I need to use my finger to press whatever. So first, where do I want to go? And I think this is one thing I want to mention, which is important for people to remember. Growth in our career is not solely vertical. It's vertical growth. If you think of growing from a team lead to a head of, etc., there is horizontal growth, which means this is specific, really interesting for people who are more generalists, right? In engineering, for example, it could be someone starting as a back-end engineer, then adding on some front-end tasks, and then developing into a full-stack engineer, adding then some data engineering, so growing horizontally. And then there is a diagonal growth, and this is where people shift from their profession to a different profession. It can be on an upward trajectory, right? Or it can also be, if you shift, it can also be a horizontal move as well. That's the one thing. So knowing where you want to go will help how you look at your transferable skills. Then every single job will have what is regarded as technical skills. What I mean by technical skills is, for example, a project manager would have knowledge of using specific frameworks, methodologies, tools, AI or any software, hardware that might be relevant for their particular role. These may or may not be relevant if the person wants to progress into a product management position. So the technical skills need to be taken apart one by one and understood, okay, what from here can I use? However, in parallel, you have what I said earlier, people refer to as hard skills, and then you have the other one people refer to as soft skills, which again, I'm not a fan of the terminology, but it's easy to relate to. If I look at the technical skills I just talked about, they usually go under the umbrella of hard skills, more or less. And let's say as a project manager, I am very familiar with, I don't know, the stakeholder metrics, because I need it in order to understand how to manage my projects. Arguably, if I want to shift in a position in marketing or whatever, you may say, I don't really need it. But understanding your technical skills and then being able to understand, okay, how can I, let's say, manipulate this skill to showcase that actually me using my knowledge about how to map my stakeholders, how to understand the networks inside of the organization, me understanding this, I can flip it over and say, in my new profession, in my new job, being a completely different thing or being a more senior role, I will utilize this part of my technical skill. Let's say I will utilize my understanding of how to map the stakeholders in the organization, and I will utilize this in order to influence my customers or whatever it might be. So understanding the skills and then being able to break them down can make kind of like any skill transferable. You can formulate it in a way. That's the technical skills part of the hard skills. And then the soft skills are the ones that are usually the most transferable ones and really extremely important. So I would say, unless there is a very specific, I don't know, embedded engineering, very specific skill that you have, which you may say, I can't use this. No, but you can break it down. What exactly do you do in that? What is the real skill that you use? And what from it can you say, okay, maybe I can't use the whole thing because it's not applicable. But what from it can I extract? And how do I formulate it in a way, or how do I present it in a way in which it would be relevant for the new role I'm going after?
So, for example, we can put in as an example someone who works in marketing and then starts getting little by little more into analytics and learns or finds out that writing SQL queries is not something so difficult for him or for her. Then that person can say, I want to move into more a data analytics or I can transition one day to a data science role. Would that be something like that? Okay, what is a part that I know right now that I can transfer to a different position? For example, in this case, writing queries, understanding databases and metrics, and I can transfer that role to a business intelligence role, for example.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good place to start. And every role that we want to, and it's the same if we go vertical, it's the same if you go horizontal or diagonal, because you will have a couple of things that you will need to still learn or get better at, regardless of where you move. But there are things that you've already probably mastered or at least got to a certain level of professionality from your current position. So that's a really good example.
Yeah, I think, for example, also for software engineers to see if you want to think of transferable skills, if you want to grow like into leadership role, you will feel like, okay, what is actually what can make me grow into that level? Is like having the ability to think more like in things in more like an abstract level, like a high level, or if I can really understand the dynamics of stakeholders, or if you have good communication skills that can make a really good, those are really good transferable skills that you can use if you want to grow vertically. Or, for example, in the case of designers, if they feel like they are understanding the technicalities of that, they can move from designer to a UX designer or into a front-end engineer, for example. They can transfer it like that by saying, actually, this feeling of aesthetics is working as a leverage for me to become, for example, from a designer to an engineer.
100%. I think folks would... This breakdown of things is extremely helpful for anyone looking to shift somehow. Again, vertically, diagonally, horizontally, it doesn't matter. Because regardless of where you would want to go, the roles that you're after will also have their explicit requirements, right? Explicit capabilities, explicit actions or day-to-day activities. And then it would make it so much easier for people to understand where they lack and where they can shift, where they can transfer. So one may say, you gave an example of data analytics, right? One may say, oh, but I want to go after this business intelligence role, for example, or this is something I'm passionate about. However, it requests this kind of software experience or whatever it might be. I may not have that, but what I do have is the way I have learned to use the basic Excel, right? And then from there, my step to learning software X is small, but I need to understand where do I stand right now and how much do I have to go to the next level rather than imagining, oh, I don't have that.
Yeah, sometimes we think the big gap that we have between where we want to be and where we are, and sometimes it's just think about the next step. It's
Yes.
just, yeah, like you said, I want to get more technical. I can do Excel, so then master Excel. After you master that, you can move to the next level.
Mhm.
Also, I mean, right now you mentioned that, okay, we have to identify what is, in a way, easy for us, like what are our strengths. But what about with the things that are hard? Because sometimes when things are hard, there's, let's say, less people mastering that field. If something is too easy, then a lot of people masters it. When something is difficult, it can be that the people that claims that they master that, they actually don't master it. And then if you jump into the field that actually is difficult, you have better chances to being the leader in that particular skill that you want to develop your career with.
I agree. I think I agree with this idea to some extent, but I would argue that if it will depend what the driver is for that. Where is my motivation behind that? Behind going after something which is more niche or more complex or complicated? Is my motivation that I want to be, let's say, a master of something which is quite hard to master in the first place? Is my motivation that I'm really passionate about the thing? Is it that I see a gap in the market and I want to make money? Or what is it?
Let's say, for example, conflict resolution. There's a lot of people who run away of conflict
Yes.
or of responsibility, or even, or let's say, mentorship. A lot of people would say, I don't want to mentor. I don't want to solve conflicts or have to deal with dynamics in teams. And that gives you sometimes a chance that if you're willing to do that, you have the possibility to grow vertically.
Yes, that's very true. Is the question now how could people think about tapping into things which don't feel comfortable? Or is the question more about I'm afraid of going after that thing? So is it a matter of will, or is it a matter of anxiety, fear? This is a question for you. I'm curious, how would you like to approach this now?
I think in terms of in software engineering, a lot of software engineers, what I feel is that they are afraid, or I don't know if afraid or they don't want this whole responsibility dynamics, like having to deal with stakeholders or people management. Makes them feel like, gives them anxiety or some sort of like rejection. But when there's a lot of people who are not willing to do that, in my case, tells me, all right, then I'll do the dirty job in a way, which is actually not as hard as it seems once you're put your toes in it. If a lot of people are not willing to go there, means that just your willingness to be there, it's already an advantage.
Okay, I understand you better now. I feel, because I understand very well what you're talking about. Remembering my days with Zalando, but then I would say, I don't want to use the word "it depends," but it kind of depends, because there are individuals who, as you well acknowledge, run away from responsibility and would say, instead of me going to the next level up in my career, so growing vertically, I would rather stay where I am or become a bit better maybe in adding new technical skills. The software engineer example, right? I learn new programming languages, I learn new solutions, etc., etc. Now, this may happen for a couple of reasons, right? I think there are individuals who indeed prefer their comfort zone, and that is a case of people management and then how their leaders manage that situation. And there are people who are afraid, who feel they are not prepared enough. And that is, again, a case, in my opinion, of how the leadership manages and helps the individual. There is a third option where the organization is not ready to welcome yet another person on the more senior level. And then let's take the fourth option where the person just doesn't know where to start. They think that whatever it is asked of them or it is proposed to them is so complicated. And if that is the case, I think the responsibility in that exact example is twofold. One is the individual responsibility to understand very clearly for themselves, what am I afraid of? What do I think it's so complicated? And again, I will go back to write it down. What am I afraid of? Am I afraid that I will fail? Am I afraid that it's boring, that it is people will take too much of my time? Understand yourself. And then the second fold is the leader of that individual, who has a responsibility just as well to help clarify these unknowns, to help to understand the person and to help clarify the potential lacks, to help clarify, okay, I understand you do not yet able to influence others, but this is how we will work towards helping you become better at influencing, right? This is how we will help you putting your point across. So I think it's twofold.
Talking about making ourselves visible, like showing up our skills. There's some people who struggle, or actually in general, we as humans sometimes we struggle to talk about our skills and sometimes our achievements.
Mm-hmm.
How can we start seeing what we're bringing to the table with more clarity?
People really feel like sometimes, not everyone, feel like, oh, I it's a bit too much. I don't want to look arrogant. I don't want to come across as too ballsy. However, if we look at a professional setting, and let's take an example, we are in an organization and our intention is to get promoted. However that promotion may look like. It may be, again, vertical, diagonal. Horizontally, it's not necessarily a promotion, but it can be if you shift job families and you end up with a bigger salary, for example. But regardless of the situation, if you're targeting promotions, there is very rarely someone genuinely interested to be in your corner. So you have to be your first advocate. And why I say that is because when you advocate for yourself, other people who you will want to be advocates for you will notice you, and then you will have a much easier chance of grabbing them and asking them to become your advocates. By advocate, I mean two things. You want a sponsor, which is someone who speaks positively about you behind closed doors, and you want mentors. And it's easier to grab them if you advocate for yourself first. Okay, but how do I do that? Because I don't want to sound arrogant. I will go back to what I said at the very beginning. Write down everything you do. Because sometimes, for us, we do a job, and it's normal. It's just duh, right? I do it every day. It's nothing special. Yes, it's nothing special for you because it's second nature, but having everything written down, and by everything I mean first your actions, and then on a weekly basis, the audit of the things that you have done that week, it will allow you to look back and realize, oh, this wasn't in my job description. Oh, I've done so-and-so's job. Oh, I've done that project in 2 weeks rather than a month. Oh, otherwise, we go through the motion and we forget.
Is what I think you might have called in one article the brag log?
The brag document, yes.
The brag document.
Yes. I know I repeat myself, but I mean, you're in tech. You understand how important documentation is. It's the same for us when we work for ourselves. Document everything. The brag document is something literally where we keep a log of the things we have done. And I tell you one of the best use cases for this brag document. When it comes to your promotion time, they will ask you most likely to do your self-review. And when you do your own review, you will still need to provide examples. I promise you, if you look back 6 months in your job, you will not remember everything you've done. No chance in hell. And that would be a shame, wouldn't it? So you have all these things written down. You will think it is absolutely trivial. Why am I doing this? And then you look back 6 months or even 3 months, and you will be able to match them. You'll say, okay, I've done project work here and here and here, and I've done fast and well every time. So you will be able to bundle these things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go and talk about what have you done in the last 3 or 6 months or whatever it might be, you will be able to say, I noticed that my, let's say, project management capability is improved because I have done ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And it's like that. And the cheeky one is, if you don't like it there, you want to leave, you just take the same brag document and you practice those things for your interviews.
Yeah.
So there is only win-win-win with this stuff.
Yeah. That's because when I read that, I thought, yeah, actually, it makes a lot of sense. I found very funny the name, brag document. But it's true. Sometimes we feel that is not our place to brag about us about stuff. But I think writing down achievements, no matter how small, we can look back and actually feel proud of ourselves or what we have done. Because yeah, sometimes it's hard to remember or to measure the impact of the things that we're doing.
One word I would not add there is achievement. And I wouldn't add only the achievements, because I tell you what, if there are other folks like me out there, they will think, oh, this isn't really an achievement. And I was like, I can't put it down. It's not that's why, not achievements, activities, actions. The simplest things that you would be maybe thinking, oh, this is nonsense. Write it down. It's probably not nonsense because it's not a singular thing, but it will come under an umbrella.
Yeah. If someone who's listening now knows they want to change, but feels afraid to starting over, what would you tell to them?
I would urge individuals to spend 1 hour with themselves and look back at all the minuscule things they think they've done. All those minuscule things, they think, of course I've done them because normal. And look at them from the lens of how can that minuscule action I took in this case, in my normal job, how can that have a positive impact in this other job that I'm aiming for, whatever that role might be? How could I translate that to someone who would maybe interview me for that job and explain why something which for me is just like a day-to-day activity, it's normal, why they would benefit from me being able to do that thing for them with so much ease. That's the one thing. And the second thing is, we do and we know more than we are aware of. So I would really recommend to everyone to take a good long look at themselves, put things down on paper and do the audit. Do the identification of their own values. We haven't talked enough about values, and I'm really sorry about that, but do an identification of their values, identify their strengths, and take a really good deep look at yourself in the professional mirror, so to speak, because we don't do that. We go through the motion on a day-to-day basis, and we forget, and therefore we don't know how valuable we are, and therefore we are afraid. We think, I have nothing to offer. We have a ton to offer. but you don't even know because you haven't looked
Yeah.
in it.
You also have built this this amazing community of people trying to grow their careers, Talent Crunch, right?
Yes.
Why does having that kind of support system matter so much when we're trying to reinvent ourselves?
Oh God. And you ask me this now in the environment that we are in relation to AI. Honestly, now community means probably much more than it did 2.5 years ago. And the fear of AI taking our jobs is extremely real regardless of the profession, more or less, actually, I feel. And therefore, having a community matters a lot. However, that's not why I started it in the first place. But it ended up being one of the most important things. That one of the reasons why it is so important to have individuals to bounce ideas off in this scenario is because the community is a talent community, meaning that it is naturally developed for people in the talent acquisition, development, management, intelligence space. However, we need to grow. We need to understand in these 4 professions I just mentioned, how do we connect the professions to each other? Because in time, a talent acquisition specialist will not suffice anymore. So we need to understand how to build transferable skills, one. And two, the other reason why the community is important is because we don't only help ourselves, we help folks from other professions. And we know things through the jobs that we do that people who are doing, I don't know, marketing, engineering, finance, accounting jobs don't have access to. So the community also, in my opinion, and it is really my belief, is that this community has a responsibility for supporting individuals which are outside of this bubble. So I think it's the help or the support is twofold. Is for us, first, because it's cool and we talk about things we know. And the second fold is this responsibility that I believe we have to support individuals in the rest of the professions with the knowledge that we have and they can hardly attain because it feels like a black box of what are they doing there, in recruitment.
Mm. How did this community start?
The truth?
Yeah.
It started because I love my profession. I'm really passionate about it. And in 2022, I was bored because Berlin went from what it was in 2017, very vibrant in the talent acquisition space, to being dead. I mean, yes, we had the pandemic in between, but we didn't do anything. And I was bored. I need to learn. My brain doesn't stop. So I need to learn. And I was like, I can't rely only on conferences, which I can't afford. And I thought, there is nothing here. Berlin is so good, is so big. We have such amazing people in the talent space. Why aren't we together? Literally, that was my thinking. Why aren't we together? We need to do something. And that's how I blurted this out. I had 2 people I collaborated with at the beginning, and this is what I blurted out to them. I want to build a community because there is nothing happening. Can't you see? I said, do you want to do it with me? And that's the truth. I could have given you a very elaborate, very elegant story and very inspirational. But the reality was that we lacked. There was a lack, honestly, in the market.
I have a feeling that Berlin 2013, 14, 15, there was a lot going on, a lot of meetups, a lot of startups, and a lot of accelerators, and a lot of companies out there doing or hosting meetups.
Mm-hmm.
You will have a speaker, free pizza, free drinks, and everything. And it was like every week, almost every day, something going on. Then, yeah, the pandemic hit, and that transitioned a little bit to online, but eventually faded out a little bit, the spirit. And now we have like hirings have dropped, or that's my impression in the last couple of years. And also, I don't know if that also creates like the action out there is lessened maybe by gathering with others and learning, continuing to learn, and how to reinvent the hiring process in companies, because some companies are still trying to hire like, I don't know, 10 years ago, or small companies are trying to hire like if they were Amazon or Facebook. Where it's like, you're just a 50-person company. Why are you trying to hire like they do, right?
Yeah. It is very true. I think the pandemic definitely had a big impact. But then you look around at other professions which are very active, right? Think engineering is definitely one of the professions, right? I know people personally who are building communities around Kotlin, right? Or mobile development or whatever it might be, data science. They came up again after the pandemic. And then there are professions which are like product management, design, very active, very curious. And then talent acquisition was nowhere to be found anymore. And when I said that I believe we have a responsibility not only to ourselves, but to every other profession, I meant it. I think one of the things that we can achieve through running communities they're called communities of practice, right, around a specific topic or so, is we don't live in echo chambers and we are not alone. So one of the things that we should do more of, and I'm not talking about my community, but in general, communities of regardless of what the practice is embrace other professions, embrace other folks, to learn from your trade, because we need transferable skills. So learning from other trades is really important today. And to what you mentioned, that the companies are using the processes from 2015, thinking they still apply today, it's very true. The problem is the same companies would never come to meetups that we do. They think they do it right.
Yeah.
So it's us to go and knock on their door, and say, hey, come join us. Let us tell you a secret or two.
Yeah. I would like to recap some of the points that we talked, because my last question, I think, it would be something that we probably have highlighted a lot, because if it would be for someone who's listening right now and feels overwhelmed and wants to and maybe feels a little bit lost, what would be the very first step that can take tonight to take more control of their career again? If I have understood this conversation very well, the first thing will be to do an audit of yourself, of what can you do good. Is that right?
My job here is done. Yes, it is right. You need to take a stance of where do you stand today. Understand where do you stand today. And I really mean deeply, not brush it off. Put down the good, the bad, the ugly on the paper. Put down the things you think are embarrassing to put down. It's yours. Nobody has to see it, right? So put it all down. Otherwise, you think it's too small. It doesn't matter. What we think sometimes it's too small for us because it's so normal. Other people would give an arm to be able to achieve or to do, So don't think anything is too small. Don't leave anything out. Put it all down. So an audit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I realize with some other departments and I see what they do, and I'm like, really? That's what you do all day? That must be hard. And they like, yeah, that's what I think about you guys in the IT.
Yes.
That how do you can do that? And like, okay, because like analyzing documents and compliance and all of those stuff, I feel like, how can you keep up with a full day of doing that? And they're like, how can you keep up by just not being able to solve a single bug? Or
yeah.
I wonder how is it for people who, for example, right now there have been a lot of layoffs lately in the in multiple industries, in the car industry, in the tech industry, in the fintech, and I think everywhere. And the markets are going down, so that may be going to lead to more layoffs. Some people might be thinking, maybe this is the time where I can actually think of what I want to do. I didn't like my job before, and now I don't have that job, so this is my chance to really think what I want to do next. However, my qualifications only make me qualifiable or applicable for the same role again, but I want something different. How can you really think where do you want to transition if you want to do something else?
You know what? There is a lot of talk right now about what is called a portfolio career. Sometimes individuals, we will not have, purely because of our family situation, our living situation, our financial situation, we will not have that luxury to say, I would really love a change. Sometimes that's the reality. Not everyone will be able to afford to do that. But if we are, there is this idea of portfolio careers. Portfolio careers means that we shouldn't anymore limit ourselves to the profession that we have been doing for the past, 10 years. Because guess what? Through that profession, we have acquired what? Skills. And we have acquired transferable skills, which means that we can look at things that we are passionate about outside of our direct job. For example, I'm passionate about, I paint. Right? That's my hobby. I'm passionate about writing. I'm just giving very basic examples which are true. And my profession for 15 years has been in talent acquisition, but I have gathered knowledge about recruitment marketing, keyword marketing. I have gathered information about design. I learned how to use Canva and whatever. So I now have a number of things which I could do. If I think of the marketing piece I just mentioned, I think, maybe I can use that skill to market the other things which I do as a passion and make money out of them. So instead of having just one job, I can do my job on a reduced amount of time, let's say part-time, fractional, interim, freelance, name it how you will. And I can add on top other things which I'm passionate about, which I am really quite good at, and I haven't had the chance to do them before in a similar capacity. Freelance, interim, we talked about courses before, right? And doing digital courses or getting a side hustle. But I think the idea is shrinking the amount of time we dedicate to one main profession and adding on top additional smaller chunks of different professional activities which bring us income. And this is a portfolio career. And this is something which is more and more, let's say, accepted in the I would say, place that we are in right now, especially with the help of artificial intelligence tooling.
Exactly. You can leverage a lot of the things that you want to build easier. You don't need to pay anymore someone to do you a website. You can now do it with AI, and then you can have your landing page to offer whatever you want to offer.
Yeah.
For example.
Exactly. And sometimes it's easier said than done, right? Fair enough. If folks aren't able to go in the direction of a portfolio career, but they want to go just change altogether, and they think, I don't have the qualifications. The reality is, unfortunately, in Germany, it is difficult right now to have to make that change, because still Germany is very risk adverse. Still companies are stuck oftentimes in the old way of thinking that your education matters, your master's degree matters. Honestly, if you don't have a PhD in, I don't know what, data science, everything else can be learned, But still, the reality is that it's quite traditional, still, in Germany. It's not applicable everywhere. And should they want to make a change in this situation, I wouldn't advise them to go and get certifications, but I would advise them to go and get practical experience by doing side projects on different platforms to get the skill itself. Your certification, wrap it, throw it out the window.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. I will get some hate for that.
For all the ones who paid certifications. But I understand, okay, you can, for example, say I want to shift of career from, I don't know, maybe customer service into marketing. I can take, reduce my working hours.
Sorry.
I
Oops.
can reduce my working hours and work one day as a intern in a marketing agency, for example, or
Yeah.
and stuff to transition it like that to get the chance to put my hands on something that can give me real experience. And then when the moment comes, then okay, then you can start applying for the job based on that practical experience that you have.
Yeah, 100%. Or Fiverr. I think most people know about Fiverr by now, or Upwork, or you know what? I work with. I met a designer, a product designer, through the community,
Mm.
and right now he is helping me with my own personal website. And he does that. He hasn't done this kind of work before. He's done a different kind of work. And the reason why he's doing it with me is because he will use this in his portfolio.
Mm.
So you can go to universities, you can go online, and you can give your time for free. Sometimes it matters. Give them something before you ask for something. It's a mantra that I honestly live by. And it will help, just adding.
What do you think about personal branding?
It is absolutely essential today. And personal branding, I think it is not spoken about enough. There is a big, big difference in the way different population groups approach it. I mean, definitely from a gender perspective, there is a big difference
Mm-hmm.
in how women and men approach this. But I think it is absolutely essential. And if folks haven't started to grasp this, just as well as networking, I think they will have a very sudden and rather unpleasant wake-up call in probably 6 months to 12 months from now.
Because with a more the more we have stuff with AI, the more we have competition of talent without a job, applying for the same job. Having a strong personal brand is going to be maybe the differentiator factor.
Yes.
What you said about like between genders, I can imagine that can be. I don't know. I cannot prove it with data, but when men are doing their personal branding or working on their personal branding, it comes out like more obvious that they're doing personal branding as when women do it. Would that be the case? Well, that would be
My
your claim?
thinking was that actually in I think we sometimes, not everyone of course, right, but sometimes women have a tendency to overthink until getting to do something, right? So is it perfect? Is it close to perfect? Whatever perfect means. Maybe I won't do it just yet. We wait way longer until we push something out. In general, of course, there are so many different types of approaching this. Whereas sometimes our counterparts would say, done is better than perfect. Push it out, test it. It's about courage a little bit, and it's normal because we are judged for being courageous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That also comes while applying for jobs. I read that, for example, when a guy applies for a job, he matches 80% of the skills. And when a woman applies for a job, she sometimes doesn't apply for the job because she has the feeling that she doesn't take all the check boxes of the skills that are needed for that job.
Yeah, that is true. It's very true. But I want to tell you an absolutely bad, deep, crazy story. On Reddit, there are plenty subreddits related to recruitment. And as we all know, it is still a thing, regardless of what happened on a diversity space recently with Meta and Amazon and all of them ditching any diversity and inclusion initiative. There is still the same discourse that in technology, we need more women in engineering. Okay, it still goes on. And then with the help of AI, and unfortunately, it becomes more and more, it's not normalized, but it happens more and more. What has happened is people are so they are creating fake CVs, women with women's name, with sometimes pictures, sometimes not, fake LinkedIn profiles, women, and then they apply for jobs. Good engineering CVs, and they go and apply for jobs. Come interview day, I mean, the stories on Reddit are wild. I really hope they are fake, really. And then comes the day of the interview, you now have AI tooling that would build avatars. They look sometimes so realistic. And then you have the interview being done by an AI. You're building an avatar, AI, fed with the information and so on and so forth. So it's bonkers. You have an AI interviewing a fake woman candidate, which is impersonated by AI.
But the AI is also from the company.
The interview. There are multiple companies. This is happening generally in the US, right? So Germany is it's fine.
So they use AI
interviewers.
Interviewer.
Interviewers.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and that can be with video or without.
Yeah.
Right? Just like you have these AI agents that show up as like, how can I help you today as a customer service? It's the same thing.
Wow.
But now they are fighting this with a perfect CV of a woman. We know it's a scarcity, right? In STEM, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go interview AI, interviews. It is mind-boggling.
Okay, but all right. And then if the job is remote, then it doesn't matter anymore, right? So you can, okay. Wow, things are evolving so fast that it's hard to think where are we going. I mean, I just heard a story of a guy who told me that in his company, there was a guy who applied. I think it was, I don't know if Pakistan or India. The guy was applying. And then the guy came to the interview, everything perfect. They liked the guy. All right, you got the job. The day of the job comes, he starts the job, and then a different guy shows up. He said, no, I just shaved and everything, cut my hair and so on. I was, all right, okay. And then months pass, and he was delivering the job. But suddenly someone detected why is someone using the VPN and connecting from India? And they started to research that, and it turns out that he was hiring a guy in India to do the job for him.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And
yes.
And the person who did the interview was another person, and this guy just showed up pretending that was the person from the interview.
Yeah. I haven't.
Like crazy.
It's insane. Yeah. And we sit here talking about how people should understand their own skills and move and ta-da-da-da-da. Well, others seem to have figured it out. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. But yes, it's true. And this, unfortunately, happens more regularly than we think. Not in the complexity of it, but someone having a job, legitimately taking up that job, and then outsourcing that job to someone in a third world country where the price is way lower. So they end up working 10 hours a week, getting the full paycheck, putting out some of that paycheck to whomever. This unfortunately happens. But now we're really talking about ethics and way bigger problems from a legality standpoint and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Where we don't even have our own little chickens in order yet.
Yeah. What's coming next? What are you preparing?
I'm preparing my first digital course, which came as a idea, like most of the things in my life come as an idea from somewhere. I'm preparing to sell my first paintings.
Okay, yeah. So like a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff. And of course there is a lot going on in the community. There are many events happening, so it's all booked and overbooked until September. Wow. And one of the most important collaborations I have coming up is with We Are Dev, with a conference coming up in July. Yeah. I'll be I don't even know if I can say this. I think I can because it will be announced soon. You're the first one to find out.
All right.
Okay, so I'm not lying. It's the truth, but wait for the marketing to show up. I'm their only talent community partner. And we'll run workshops, talent clinics. It's something I am tremendously excited about.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
very proud, I have to say.
Yeah.
So now you know.
All right. So,
Okay.
so well, cool for all the people who will be there. And do you have already a title for your course? Or a waiting list is coming up?
I think it will be, yes, it will be a wait list, but I think the title will go back to the origins. You know, if we talked about it at the beginning, develop.me, it just stuck. It was the title of my talk at We Are Dev conference.
All right. Yeah. Sounds very exciting. I will put the link of the waiting list of your course in the description.
Ooh, thank you so much. Yes.
Andreea, thanks a lot for being in the podcast, for sharing what you know. And I hope the people who's listening have some practical tools of how to rethink their careers, how they can do the whole career archetyping, finding out what you're good at and how to show to the world what they're good at.
Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time.